Hi, I'm Zack, and this is Drums Are Bad, Say No to Drums, the show where I play the drums or the drums play me.
Maybe it wasn't fun, never play the drums, remember drums are bad, say no to drums.
Alright, inaugural breakdown. Our song Mabu, as requested by my friends, listed in the description. I assume I'm pointing at it, unless YouTube has changed something. With special thanks to Chris Cowburn and Luke Westaway. The song is a mouthful, and it's probably because, especially early on, I had a tendency to need to put everything I wanted to say into a single song. This is a common theme with me. I overthink, I over-execute, and I end up having a lot going on. So let's start at the beginning, like so many things do. First, I should go over the fact that there are some minor differences between how this is performed on the record and how it's played live. Some things change for ease of playing, some things change for ease of playing and singing at the same time, which I so often do, and is a different matter. And some things change simply because I forgot what I actually played and settled into a new thing. By and large, the song is felt in angular 5/4 and groovy 6/8, and transitions between those feels pretty freely. The big question mark, I imagine, is what I'm doing in the intro and the re-intro and the outro, so I'll try my best to elucidate. Other than that, I'll probably tend towards being exhaustive with every explanation for clarity's sake, and as always, I'm open to feedback to this end. Intro. The intro is largely just me locking in with the guys. I don't want to step out and alienate the listener too much just yet. There's still 3 records worth of time to do that. Largely after the opening hits, the groove itself is just me following the rhythm of the guitars while keeping straight time on the open hi-hats. Okay, so in the intro, it's as an overview, it's 8 bars total of 5/4 time. The very first 2 bars, I'm only hitting the 4 and 5 on the snare, floor tom, and kick, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now on to the intro groove, though there's nothing groovy about it. I treat the first half of each bar of 5/4 as a count of 3, and the second half as a count of 2, which added together makes 5. You know, math. The first half is just based on a 2/3 pattern. That is 2 hits evenly dispersed over a count of 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. The second half is hitting the 4 and 5 straight on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you put it all together, you get this. So as you can hear it, I have straight hi-hats keeping time on top, except in the actual recorded version or the way I perform it live, the hi-hats are open like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll do that slower. Now the next wrinkle is adding the kick drum in. In the first half of that phrase, that bar of 5/4, the kick lands on the 2 and the and of 4. So, and the second half, it's just evenly between the snare hits, like so. And this is what it sounds like at full speed. But hold on, before we move on, we have to tackle the requisite stop before the section change. But, keep your head on about you because, of course, we've changed the length of the bar. This last bar before the verse is now in 6 with a stop on the 4 count. Like so. I'll try that again. I suppose the logic behind this was to make the transition into the next section, which is in 6, or it starts in 6, a little less jarring. Also, pub songs always need to be distracting. Here's the whole intro again. Try to count along. I'll do it slower first, and then I'll play it up to speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Verse. The verse groove is an extension of what's happening in the intro groove, but here I trade an open hi-hat for the rim of the floor tom. The one wrinkle is now the time alternates between 6 and 5. All right, so for the verse, we start on a bar of 6. As I said, the verse groove is just an extension of what's happening in the intro, but here I'm doing the hi-hat part on the floor tom. The first bar is like this. Second bar is identical. The third bar is a bar of 5, so we're just chopping off a beat there, but it's the same principle. So just like the intro. And the next bar is another bar of 6, just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in total, we have a bar of 6, a bar of 6, a bar of 5, and then a bar of 6. This is the whole section slowly. So this happens twice to comprise the entirety of the verse. Same principles in applying the kick drum more or less, but adapted for the changing time signatures. I'll just play the entire verse right now. speed. Chorus. Now I made the chorus easy so I could sing while playing. The rest of the song is stressful, so I figured I'd give myself a break. There isn't a ton of mystery to it, I don't think, just a ballady 6/8 type thing. So yeah, as I said, not a ton of mystery to it. Just a ballady 6/8 type thing. Make sure you're adding a bunch of zesty little ghost notes, some flavor, you know. And this is it. The basic groove kind of slowed down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course, to end the section, there's another annoying build. Prerequisite to all pop songs, there's always a bunch of builds. And then that leads into Stefan, saying, I need an engine that runs, or whatever the shit he says there. And this one, it's just a little subtle build on the, imagine that subtle, on the kick drum and ending on the snare. The whole part goes like this, slowly. I need an engine that runs. And here's the speed. Re-intro. Now, here's where the fun begins. This I originally and largely based on a bit of an improvisational idea, which eventually just kind of became a static part, which is how many of my parts tend to take shape. I took most of my inspiration from the song The Grudge by the band Tool, specifically the ending of that song where Danny Carey is kind of going off. I took this approach for both this re-intro and the outro. Okay, so here we have 8 bars total. It's all following the pulse of the original intro groove in 5/4, but I'm doing some variations and some fills just to, break it up a bit. Rep 1 or bar 1, I should say, is just the intro groove. So if you go back, it's like this. So just a bar of 5/4 regular intro groove. The second bar, I'll just do it slowly first. It's a half rep, so the first 3 beats of the intro groove going into a triplet tom roll, like so. Bar 3 is some flailing, hitting on the rhythm of the rhythm section, just like kind of playing along with the 5/4 time. Then bar 4 is another half intro groove going into, a totally necessary, totally tasteful, and absolutely beautiful blast beat, with 3 hits on the kick and ride, and 2 hits on the snare. And the last 4 bars are mostly just me trying to get through the section using the intro groove, but with some small variations. And then we make an instant breakneck transition into the second verse. I'll play the first half slow, and then I'll play the entire re-intro. And here's the entire re-intro at speed. Now, you didn't think we'd repeat the rhythms and motifs we had already established in the first verse, did you? Of course not. We're nothing if not inconsistent. Now here I wanted as much as possible for someone as immature as me to let the section breathe, have some restraint, and, let you listen to Nestor's beautiful and lyrical bass part. Then we do a bit of a build into the second half of the verse. The second half of this verse is a bit more frenetic, and then we close it off with even a bit more chaos to create contrast for the upcoming mellow chorus. It's a 16-bar verse with 4 distinct sections, and I will break down as such for you, my disciples. Part 1 is a pretty standard shuffly ballad type feel in 6/8, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as we play. But we end it with a tom roll that goes over the bar line, Brondeiler for Mastodon style, or that's what I like to tell myself. This is at the end of this part 1, that is transitioning into part 2 of the verse. So in other words, it's a fill that lasts from backbeat to backbeat. What I mean by that is, in this groove, the standard we have set was that the snare lands on the 4, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which we're calling the backbeat in the 6/8 feel groove. Don't ask me why I made it this complicated. You'll learn why as you get to know me, as so many do, that I overthink literally everything. All right, so here's the groove in its simplest form, just like the most basic idea of it. Just kind of trying to follow along with Nestor's bass part. Like that part. Pretty simple. So the hitch comes in on the 4 count of bar 4 of that groove. So after 4 bars, right before the end of the bar, I do a fill that leads into the next bar. It's basically a fill that goes from the backbeat of the bar, which is the count of 4, the 1, 2, 3, 4, from that count to the count of 4 in the next bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's basically how it's counted. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that lasts until the 4 bar 5. And that's the first bar of what we're calling part 2 of the second verse. The first fill itself starts with a splash on the open hats and snare. It transitions to a tom roll into another splash on the hats and snare, or whatever crash or accent symbol you're going to use. So this is it slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Part 2, so coming out of that fill, that tom roll, we continue as we did, closed hat, 6/8 ballad, but in the last 2 bars of this part, we open the hat and start hitting beats 1, 3, and 4, and 6 with a kick drum to give it to some upward motion. This is, of course, up to interpretation, just trying to add some energy leading into the second half of the verse. So it goes something like this in total. Part 3. The next groove is a bit more active. It splits its time, much like I split my time during my childhood between my divorced parents, as a splash on the hats and a roll on the snare. Okay, so the whole groove is built with a kick on 1, the and of 3, and on 6, with the snare on 4. So this is just kick and snare. But in between those kind of sparse sounding hits, I'm doing a roll, and I'm using the hi-hats to pulse along with Stefan's voice. This is what it would sound like with just the hi-hats. Here's what it sounds like with me adding the snare. So the kick drum hit right before the snare hit on beat 4 kind of helps keep the momentum of the snare The snare rolls in the groove, and it kind of frees up my left hand to keep the backbeat more easily. It also has the side effect of making it a weird, burpy little groove. Just remember, as a reminder, we're putting a kick on the 6 of that groove to give it kind of a continuous rolling feel. Again. Okay, so part 4 of the groove. This closes out the second verse. It's similar to the last part. It's kind of basically repeating the first half of that original groove. This part, that part, but we're trying to hit the snare on all the 1s and 4s to give that pulse a more kind of amped up feel. So this is what it sounds like slowed down. And so we do that, and then we do a roll to crash into the chorus. So and there we are into the chorus. All right, chorus. Second chorus, to be specific. Fairly similar to the first, but slightly longer. Not a lot of mystery here, thankfully. Just following the guys as much as I can, ballad style. The only variation is a build-up at the end and a stop to transition into the bridge. So here it is slowed down. Here's it sped up. Which leads into the bridge. The bridge. More complication. Great. Now, the bridge comes in 3 flavors. Weird, quiet, and loud. This is how I will refer to the sections going forward. The weird is the first part of the bridge, all in 5/4. First half is built on a repeating phrase or ostinato on the snare with accents on open hi-hats on 1 and 4. Okay, so here's the ostinato. I'll play it slowly just so you can get it. Even slower. So the part that has this ostinato in it is 8 bars total, so 8 reps of that particular pattern. For the first 4 bars, I'm only hitting the kick on the 1 of every other phrase. So the first bar, the 1 of first bar, I'm hitting a kick. The 1 of the third bar, I'm hitting the kick. For the second half, I double up and I hit the kick on the 1 of every phrase, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I could have just stayed with the rhythm of the guitars the whole time, but of course I had to add an open hi-hat part on top as like a, I don't know, kind of complementary but not entirely necessary layer. And they land on, as I said, the 1 and the 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, when you put it all together, it sounds like this. Second half of the weird is just the intro groove, more or less, with minor variations, which are, in my opinion, optional. Optional means, of course, depending on the mistakes I've made already during the set, how much beer I've had, and how terrified and anxious I am at the prospect of screwing up in front of an audience. Now here I just try to lock in with Nestor and build some momentum. As I said, it's largely the intro groove, but I start on the hi-hats and I go to the right halfway through to build a bit of momentum. Momentum which we obviously immediately arrest because we're annoying jackasses with an apparent agenda to confuse, like this. And here's the whole thing up to speed. The quiet. This part serves as an intermediary leading to the next part, the loud. It is mostly just me just hitting the rims to the rhythm of the intro riff and underlying bridge riff. Here it is slowly. Up to speed. The loud. This is, again, mostly following the rhythm and the drum part established by the intro, and the sections preceding it in the bridge. But this is all performed with the right hand on the ride, smashingly, with gusto. I mostly try to follow vocals and any accents as dictated by the guitars, which I think are fairly obvious to hear. If you can play the intro groove at this point, you can probably play this. It is 2 reps long. Each rep is 4 bars. The time of each bar of the reps are counted 5, 6, 6, and 6, respectively. A mixed bag, like the first verse, but in different order, naturally. Why be consistent? Rep 1 is as such. Make sure to remember to catch the guitar climb with accents on the crashes in the last 3 beats of the rep. Here it is slowly. Here it is up to speed. Rep 2, same as the first, a little bit louder and a little bit worse. And also, of course, again, we cut out for the last 3 beats to go into the last chorus. So, Stefan can say his piece. Slowly. And up to speed. Final chorus, finally. It's a loud version of the chorus with a build. That's it. This is how you play it. So this is a bit heavier on the ride than the past choruses, and you'll notice the second last bar of the section, you'll want to be doing kick drums on every beat, and the last bar of this section is straight shots, not a build, on kick, snare, and open hi-hats to transition into the outro. Here it is slow. And now faster. Outro. This part is a bit of a blur. Lots of stuff going on. Again, like the intro and re-intro, 8 bars of 5/4 total. I'll break it down bar by bar. This is by no means exact. This is going to be broken down per my intentions, but sometimes I improvise and sometimes I make mistakes. But this is mostly the general idea. So here we go. So this is going to be a disaster, probably. It's, as I said, 8 bars of 5/4. And I'll try to break it down bar by bar. Bar 1 is just like a regular full rep of the intro groove. Again, using the term groove loosely. Again, slowly. That's how the first bar goes. Just the first bar. Because I'm stupid. Bar 2, it's the first half of the regular groove. That part, the 3 beats, 3/2. And the second half is a 2-beat triplet fill across the toms. My technical term for it is dickada dickada. Because that's what it sounds like. Dickada dickada. Dickada dickada. Or however you want to play it. So slowly. Breaking it up with kick drum if you want. Or whatever makes you comfortable. The first 3 beats of bar 3 start with a crash on 1, with an 8th note roll on 1 and 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then a snare and a hi-hat on 4 and 5. So 4, 5, 6. Like that. Up to speed. Bar 4 starts like a regular intro groove, like this. So that's the 2/3 thing. But going to beats 4 and 5, beat 4 has a crash, and then there's a triplet fill on the snare on the 5, like this. Like that. So altogether slowly it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And up to speed. Like that. So that kind of bleeds into bar 5, because bar 5 starts with an extremely similar fill, so it gives it a sort of falls over the bar line feel. Similar principle, but it kind of rushes into the 4 just so I can link up with the guitars. So it's something like this. I'll do it slowly. Again, even slower. So altogether, when you put them together, it gives you that, again, like I said, a kind of over the bar line feel. The 2 bars together sound like this, slowly. Or however you want to accent those beats. This is it up to speed. So again, you can hear the rest of the bar kind of accents the rhythm of the guitar on the kick and crashes. That kind of stuff. Again, the whole thing again. So bar 6, very similar to the intro groove, if you remember the intro explanation. Again, if you can play that, you can probably play this, depending on the nimbleness of your hands. But it's basically you're just playing through the intro, but you're adding a quick triplet fill just on the 5. So it'll be something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, faster. Bar 7, regular intro groove. So again, like this. Okay, so bar 8, we're ending the song. It's just a quick little fill. We start with a hit on the snare and the hats on 1. Next piece, right hand on the snare, left hand on the high tom. That sounds terrible. Right hand on the floor tom. Then a kick drum, and then both your right hand on the floor tom and then your left hand on the snare at the same time. So super slowed down, this is what it sounds like. And up to speed. So that's the whole thing. First I'll play the entire outro slowly, and then I'll play it up to speed. And up to speed. Or something like that. So yeah, that's basically it. You'll notice not everything was exactly as I said. Not everything's verbatim. I don't play all the parts exactly the same all the time anyway. I'm mostly just always trying to keep the groove together, stay with the band, and you know, if you basically follow this interpretation, you can play the song. It doesn't matter. The minute details are inconsequential. And if you can just basically play it this way, I'll take it. Like, you know, infinite variations, infinite possibilities. It's the beauty of life, and it's just how it is. If you screw up, just call it jazz. And that is somehow it. Now, as a small aside, I wanted to talk about my approach to odd times. This is probably something I'll go over in different ways somewhat often, but I felt like broaching the subject now as it's our inaugural. In general, I don't tend to count too much. This is owed largely to the fact that when I was coming up, I practiced to a click a lot, both in even and odd times, but also I played and improvised as much as I could over songs in odd times. This has sort of helped me be better at feeling odd time, for lack of a better term, in an effort to keep it less stilted when I write and conceptualize my parts. But if you're just starting in odd times and trying to get a handle on this concept that could blow open a whole new world for you, it's important to count while you're playing, just so you can pay attention to the time and get that ingrained. Once you feel comfortable counting, playing, and feeling odd time simultaneously, you'll be able to let that go, and you'll be able to feel odd time with relative ease. To me, it's all about making it feel natural. 4/4 and 6/8 feels natural because we're so surrounded by it in our musical experience. It permeates it, by and large, which is not wrong. Make no mistake, 4/4 is a vehicle for great music. But if you want to write and play an odd time, you should surround yourself with that too. And take it slow. Don't worry if you don't get it quickly. I certainly did not. It took a lot of practice, like everything does. As far as writing parts in odd time, it's usually my objective to try and hide the odd time, in an effort to make it feel natural, make it easier to bob your head while keeping it in an odd time, or to not alienate the listener. But in this case, all of that kind of went out the window because of my untethered hubris. Either way, I will try to get into this idea of hiding time in a later episode. To close, and this is a point you'll probably hear me make a couple of times, I like stuff to be weird and accessible. Who knows if I accomplish that here? What I do know is it's time for me to leave this place. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Shouts to Steph, Nestor, and Steve for their tireless endurance of me as a person. Joe, Mac, and Brillcorn, of course. And also Brandon for being the greatest and animating my intro. Goodbye forever.